So we've looked at sort of the lean strategic reasons why capacity is important to measure. Now I'd like to explain the process to measure capacity. Most companies don't measure capacity the way I'm about to explain it. There's other ways that companies have measured capacity. Sometimes it's just through their ERP planning system that calculates capacity. And again, this is a lean view of how to measure capacity. If you follow this process, you'll get good numbers. So I'm going to summarize the steps right here, then we'll look at each of the steps in detail. The first step is you need to determine the source of the data used to measure capacity. Next, you have to determine or decide where you're going to measure capacity. Once you've done that, then you have to look at the activities in the process and define the activities the way I just explained a few minutes ago between value add, non-value add necessary, non-value add waste. Next, you have to collect the data. I'll explain how that's done. Then you finally can calculate the capacity. And then we'll talk a little bit about updating capacity. Now it's best to follow this sequence of steps in order to get good quality data. So let's look at each of these steps in more detail. Determining the source of data. And you have some options here. One way is to look at the steps in the process. Now, this is typically the best way to measure capacity when the value-added activities of the process must be performed in a specific sequence. For example, if you produce products in manufacturing, there is only one way to build the product. It must follow a specific sequence. You cannot cut corners, you cannot change the sequence of activities, or else you don't get a quality product. So in this case, looking at the activities in the process step is most effective. The other way to look at the source of data is looking at the activities of an employee or the activities of a specific position. Now, this is best used when there are value-added activities which must be performed, but the exact sequence can vary a little bit. Now, this is true in service businesses. This is true when you're producing information or maybe some intangible product. For example, healthcare. And I'm going to show you a healthcare example in a little while. There's specific activities that healthcare providers must perform, but the exact sequence at which they perform them is going to have some variation. In accounting, especially a smaller accounting department, the employees are going to perform specific activities, for example, in accounts payable, but they may not perform these activities in the same sequence every single day. And so this is the distinguishing factor. in terms of whether you look at a process step or look at the employee. So where do we measure? Okay, you understand the process in which you need to measure, or a value stream. And you really have two choices. You can calculate the capacity for every process step. This is best used in simple manufacturing value streams, simple service value streams, and in most administrative processes. You can also calculate capacity at the bottleneck process step. So for those of you who are not familiar, the bottleneck process step is the specific process step in a value stream or some flow which has the longest cycle time or processing time, and it controls the rate of flow through the entire value stream. Now it's best to measure capacity at the bottleneck step in complex manufacturing value streams and service value streams. Bottlenecks are also called pacemakers or constraints. Again, this is a choice, okay? If you have a manufacturing process step that has, or manufacturing value stream that has like 35 steps, it may be cumbersome to do the capacity for all 35 steps. So just find the bottleneck or the key, or 2 or 3 key bottlenecks. Again, this is a choice that you will have to determine based on the specific value stream or process that you're measuring. So after you've collected the data, the next step is to actually do the calculations. Okay? Productive capacity is the total time spent on value-added activities. Non-productive is the total time spent on all of the non-value-added activities, both necessary and wasteful. Available capacity is how much time is created through continuous improvement. So this is just simple math. You have this total available time. You subtract out the productive. You subtract out the non-productive. You create the available. And we'll show this in percentage. I'm going to show you this in some examples, and it's basically percentages.